You should hear what keeps him up at night.
This is what keeps me up at night. I don't understand how my fellow Americans, I don't even understand how this election is close. And yes, I'm voting for you, but I would also vote for that wall over there.
Well, he's half right. We do need a wall. You know, to keep out gang members, fentanyl dealers, human traffickers, and Anna Navarro. What's funny, though, is that Stern actually thought that was a compliment. Stern has become such a wussified sycophant, he doesn't realize that telling Kamala that he'd vote for a wall is telling her that he knows she's as dumb as one.
Howard Stern built his empire by breaking every rule in the book. He didn't just talk, he roared. He mocked the rich, tore into the powerful, and turned rebellion into a full-blown performance. But when Greg Gutfeld flipped the script and aimed the spotlight straight at Stern, on live TV, the fall was swift and shocking. The so-called king of shock radio? He had no fight left, no comebacks, no fury, no razor-sharp wit that made him famous, just dead silence. A silence so suffocating, it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Viewers didn't just watch it, they felt it, like a siren blaring in the middle of the night. Gutfeld didn't debate him, he dissected him. He tore down the myth in real time, peeling back the layers of fame to reveal what was left underneath. It wasn't rebellion anymore, it was retreat. What the world saw wasn't the old unfiltered Stern, fearless and raw. It was a man sipping cocktails with the elite and calling it work. And that contrast? It hit like a wrecking ball. Gutfeld wasn't just questioning Stern's evolution, he exposed it. He painted a picture of a man who once snarled at celebrity culture, now basking in it. The rebel had become the red carpet, and the world couldn't unsee it.
But that's how Stern can call snacking with celebs at a fancy restaurant exhausting. Exhausting. Like he finished the overnight shift in a coal mine, or hearing Kat talk about her pets.
Fair.
But I get it, life is tough, especially when you've been cut off from the world for 2 years in a $20 million beach house. I mean, you have no idea how tiring it is walking all the way from the wine cellar to the tennis court and back.
Gutfeld didn't hold back. He mocked Stern for acting like dining at a luxury restaurant was back-breaking labor. He sneered at the idea that walking from a wine cellar to a tennis court could be exhausting. The audience was stunned. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. Imagine that, Gutfeld jeered, thinking you're worn out from tasting vintage wine. The room exploded in disbelief. It wasn't just funny, it was a slap in the face. A moment like that doesn't fade. It burns itself into pop culture forever, like a meteor slamming into the earth. This wasn't sarcasm, it was a televised reckoning. Gutfeld didn't just call out Stern, he scorched the legacy he once stood on. The Howard Stern who once breathed fire over the airwaves now looked like a neutered version of himself, meek, polished, and painfully tame. The comparison was brutal. The bold, rule-breaking icon of the past stood side by side with today's soft-spoken celebrity whisperer, and the difference was devastating. Then came the line that shattered everything. The rebel became the machine. Gutfeld thundered, and the audience froze. That sentence hung in the air like thunder, heavy and undeniable. This was the man who once mocked the red carpet, and now he rolled it out for himself. It wasn't gossip, it wasn't tabloid fluff, it was a raw cultural unmasking, live and unfiltered. Gutfeld didn't frame Stern as a legend. He painted him as a warning, a caution sign for what happens when you trade rebellion for relevance. And when Stern tried to defend himself, it only got worse. On his own radio show, he weakly said, "If woke means I can't support Trump or I support transgender people, then yeah, I'm woke." But even that didn't land. It sounded like he was trying to convince himself more than anyone else. Gutfeld didn't attack his values, he attacked the contradictions. He showed how Stern, once a slayer of phoniness, now clung to Hollywood's praise like a lifeline. The irony was overwhelming, and the damage was done.
But it is incredibly brave to take this stance after you've made $300, $400 million not being woke, right? Loving Donald Trump, exploiting the mentally ill, wearing blackface. Look at the crop of woke comics, whether it's Stern or Jimmy Kimmel, his BFF, Sarah Silverman, Joy Behar, Michael Ian Black. What do they all have in common? They wore blackface. And then they went woke. It's not a chicken or egg thing there. You know what order it came. So I call this BFR. It's blackface reparations. There's nothing in Stern's previous career that could withstand this modern witch hunt that he now embraces. So this is a form of restitution. Maybe he says, you know, if I'm woke too, the crocodile will eat me last. But they always do eat. But I get it. He flipped from populist to elitist because now he's with elitists.
This was the man who once humiliated celebrities on air, now showering them with praise while rocking designer hoodies on satellite radio. Gutfeld didn't even have to shout, he just described it, and that's what made it sting 10 times harder. His calm delivery was surgical, precise, and devastating. He painted a haunting image, the wild-haired rebel of the past, replaced by a perfectly groomed media darling. It was slow-motion destruction, elegant and lethal. The Howard Stern people remembered now felt like a myth. And just when it couldn't cut deeper, Gutfeld twisted the blade one more time. He reminded everyone how Stern once thrived in chaos, fed on it, lived in it. But now, he delivers lectures on conformity from a $20 million zero-cents beach mansion like a retired emperor hiding behind velvet curtains. It wasn't just a personal blow, it was a philosophical takedown. What happens to a rebel when he gives up the fight? When fire turns into comfort? We didn't have to imagine it. We saw it unravel live on screen. And it wasn't pretty. Nobody expected Howard Stern to choke, but that's exactly what he did. The same man who once steamrolled guests into submission stood there motionless, paralyzed, like a statue in a museum of fading legends. Gutfeld didn't need to rub it in. He let the silence speak. And the audience? They filled that silence with gasps, laughter, and the growing realization that something massive had just shifted. The rebel wasn't leading the room anymore. He was swallowed by it. Then came the explosion online. Social media caught fire. Clips of the takedown spread across every corner of the internet. Viewers weren't just amused, they were stunned. Comment after comment screamed the same thing. He said what we were all thinking. Stern didn't just get challenged, he got unmasked. And the most crushing part? He had no answer. That chilling silence? It might go down as the loudest moment of his entire career. No theatrics, no gimmicks, just raw, gut-punch truth that left the world speechless.
I will say this, Dagan. I thank God for Howard Stern because he does make me feel normal by comparison. Because I'm like the Fox recluse. I don't do anything. I don't go anywhere. But he makes me look like, you know, Pete Davidson on a...
Yeah, he's a germaphobe. Like, his wife rescues cats. That's her job, apparently, her thing. But you can get toxoplasmosis.
That's true.
Cryptosporidiosis.
AIDS.
And
no, you can't.
No,
but
you can't get.
No, you can't.
But you can get.
I mean, what are the chances I get that again?
Like a
It was the look on Stern's
diarrhea-related.
face that told the whole story. You could almost see Gutfeld's words sinking in like cement, heavy, undeniable. Stern looked stunned, like someone had ripped the mask off his legacy in front of a live audience, with no armor left to protect him. For years, Stern acted untouchable. He built a fortress around himself, cloaked in controversy, legend, and ego. But in that moment, Gutfeld reminded the world, legends can fade. And the edge that once made Stern dangerous, it had dulled into something safe and boring. What made the whole thing even more brutal was that Gutfeld didn't even dig into Stern's past. He didn't have to. He simply held up a mirror and, bam! The image staring back wasn't the rebel we remembered. It was a cautious, polished version hiding behind celebrity dinners and red carpet smiles. The man who once eviscerated the powerful on air was now clinking glasses with Jimmy Kimmel and posing with Jennifer Aniston. The same guy who torched the elites had clearly joined them. The transformation wasn't just glaring, it was humiliating. And Gutfeld, he didn't miss a beat. With that icy, dry sarcasm, he delivered one of the night's coldest punches. "Must be exhausting," he mocked, chatting with celebrities and strolling from your penthouse to your luxury car. The crowd lost it. Not out of cruelty, but because it was painfully true. He wasn't just roasting Stern, he was slicing straight through the act. Stern, once the brutal truth-teller, now looked like a man completely soaked in performance. The edge, the danger, the fire? Gone. In its place stood a mascot, a symbol of what used to be bold, now watered down for approval. Gutfeld carved that contradiction wide open, and what made it hit harder? He never yelled. He didn't rant. He delivered the blows with calm, cold precision, the kind that doesn't need noise to leave a scar. This wasn't violence. It was truth, and it left a deeper mark than any shout ever could. A truth so sharp, Stern couldn't outrun it, because when he used to call out hypocrisy, he did it with flames, but now, with the tables turned, he stood frozen, unable to even move. That fire, that charisma, that fearless energy that once made him untouchable? It had completely vanished under the pressure of one calm, brutal confrontation.
On his radio show, Howard Stern defended wokeism, saying it's a compliment when someone calls him woke. Listen.
If woke means I can't get behind Trump, which is what I think it means, or that I support people who want to be transgender, or I'm for the vaccine, well, dude, call.
Stern got even more pathetic, wondering how she doesn't nap.
When you said you don't nap, I get it, because like what you've taken on is extraordinarily difficult. And I mean, do you feel the pressure of the moment in the sense that, like when I met you out in the hall, I said, I'm really nervous because I want this to go well for you. I want it to go well for the country.
Hold on. I need a minute.
As Gutfeld kept the pressure on, Stern seemed to shrink right into the shadows of his own legend. His silence wasn't just awkward, it was damning. This wasn't just another televised debate, it was a slow-motion implosion of everything Stern once stood for. People weren't just watching a feud, they were witnessing a legacy crack in real time. The difference between the two men couldn't have been more striking. Gutfeld was raw, current, untamed. Stern, by comparison, looked like a golden trophy, polished, yes, but collecting dust on a forgotten shelf. The worst part? The audience felt it too. They didn't just laugh, they agreed. Online comments poured in like a tidal wave, and the tone was brutal. People were saying, Stern used to be the voice of the people, now he's just another Hollywood mouthpiece. It wasn't some dramatic fall from grace, it was something quieter but more devastating, a slow, silent drift into luxury and comfort. And Gutfeld didn't even have to be cruel. He used facts, cold, undeniable truth, and that truth hit harder than any insult ever could. Then came the moment that ripped the lid off everything. Gutfeld brought out the flashback, the memory of the old Stern. The Stern who joked about everyone and everything, no matter how edgy or outrageous. The same man who built an empire by crossing every line. And now? That same guy was caught tiptoeing around comedy like it was a landmine. Gutfeld even rolled a clip where Stern said he didn't want comedians making fun of certain politicians because there's too much at stake. That sentence hit like a brick wall. Jaws dropped. This was the man who once declared nothing's off limits, now suddenly begging for boundaries? The audience was stunned. The comments online went wild. Who is this guy, they asked. because he definitely wasn't the same fire breather they once knew. Gutfeld didn't have to rant, he just pointed, and the audience connected the dots themselves. And then, the final knockout. This isn't growth, Gutfeld said. It's surrender. That one sentence exploded across social media like a lightning bolt through dry timber. It wasn't just personal, it was a statement. Gutfeld wasn't accusing Stern of aging, he was accusing him of giving up. And with Stern hiding in his mansion, the message couldn't have been clearer. The fight was over, and he'd quietly walked away from the very thing that made him matter.
But Stern being holed up in his house that long, it explains a lot of things, like how you forget how other people live, especially in hard times like a pandemic. For the longest time, 2 years in fact, the same time Stern's been AWOL, I wondered where he went. Not physically, but mentally. I bet you did too. Remember his screeds about COVID? They were epic and angry, and not to mention wrong.
When are we going to stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say, it's mandatory to get vaccinated? F them, f their freedom. I want my freedom to.
Meanwhile, Gutfeld just kept going, relentless, precise, unstoppable. He didn't ease up for a second, and the more he spoke, the clearer it became. This takedown wasn't about politics. It was about something far deeper. Authenticity. In today's world, people crave honesty, even when it burns. And while Stern clung to a legacy born in another time, Gutfeld was tearing through the present with raw, unfiltered energy. The roles had flipped, and the audience saw it happen live. There he was, Stern, the man who built an empire by dragging others through the mud, now squirming under the very same heat. Gutfeld hadn't just tossed a few insults. He stripped away the legacy, layer by layer. And Stern's silence? That made it real. Even Stern's defenders began to falter. They tried to twist it, claiming he had evolved or matured. But the audience wasn't buying it. The man who used to own being outrageous now looked desperate to be accepted. The contrast was heartbreaking. The truth hit like a slap. Howard Stern, once the nightmare of the establishment, now dined with it. That shift didn't look like growth. It looked like surrender. And Gutfeld made sure everyone saw the truth behind the curtain. And what made it even worse, Gutfeld didn't have to exaggerate a single word. Every blow he delivered was built on Stern's own transformation. This wasn't wild comedy, it was cold, factual devastation. Clips from the showdown exploded across the internet. YouTube, TikTok, X, Instagram, the digital world lit up like a bonfire. People who had grown up idolizing Stern were now agreeing he wasn't the same man. The rebel had become the very thing he used to destroy. One viewer wrote, "This is what happens when legends get too comfortable." Another said, "Gutfeld said what we've all felt for years. Stern isn't Stern anymore." The internet wasn't just reacting, it was erupting. And just when it felt like it couldn't get worse for Stern, Gutfeld swung with one last hammer blow. He said, Howard Stern didn't just sell out, he forgot why people ever listened to him in the first place. That line didn't just hurt, it shook the entire foundation of Stern's legacy.
Even when I watch them on Saturday Night Live with the where they have Maya Rudolph playing you, I hate it. I don't want you being made fun of.
Oh my God.
There's too much at stake. I believe the entire future of this country right now, I mean, as America, land of the free, home of the brave, I think it's literally on the line.
So a guy who's supposed to be funny for a living now claims her candidacy is too important to joke about. This is a guy who once joked right after the Columbine massacre that the killers should have raped the students before killing them. Not that I like that Stern, but this pendulum swing from saying the most tasteless thing in the universe to putting your balls in a Tic Tac container. You gotta wonder what's going on here. It's striking that the king of the most misogynistic humor ever now turns into a breathless over a progressive, hopelessly shallow candidate.
Howard Stern, the man who once built his entire image on being fearless, now looked afraid to speak, afraid to offend, afraid to confront. And in the brutal world of raw, unfiltered commentary, fear is a death sentence. The very weapons Stern once used to dominate, mockery, sarcasm, defiance, had been mastered by someone else. Gutfeld didn't just challenge him, he replaced him, and that's the saddest part of all. Stern didn't lose the crown, he abandoned it. This wasn't a knockout, it was a surrender. Stern didn't get outsmarted, he got out-rebelled, and by someone who still had the guts to call out hypocrisy, no matter who was watching, no matter who got offended at the next elite cocktail party. Viewers didn't just watch a takedown, they watched a legacy fracture. They watched it in real time, and they felt it, because the truth was inescapable. Howard Stern was no longer the voice of outrage, he was the voice of a past that couldn't keep up. And when it was over, when the fire died down and the screens went dark, only one truth remained. Howard Stern wasn't just embarrassed, he was replaced. Because if the guy who made millions by being controversial can't even handle criticism, that's not shocking, it's just sad. And when the same man who once roared about bold truths now hides behind polite smiles and polished appearances, the crowd stops following. They move on. And that's exactly what happened. In front of the entire world.
Happy Friday, America! Oh man, tonight is a special night. It's Feminine Friday, where all the panelists are women. Tonight we have Kennedy, David McDowell, Kat Tim, and Janine Garofalo. A long way for a meat joke. Okay, I hope you had a good week. I did, and no thanks to Howard Stern. True, the New York Post reported that Stern hit a chic restaurant in NYC with a crew of A-listers, including Jimmy Kimmel, Jennifer Aniston, Jon Hamm, Justin Theroux, Jason Bateman. I was not invited. I guess
Greg Gutfeld didn't just mock Stern. He claimed the throne right in front of everyone, and in doing so, he left one of media's most iconic voices sounding less like a roar and more like a faint whisper. Stern's fall wasn't explosive. It was quiet, slow, and painfully public. The legacy that once blazed like wildfire now flickered like a dying candle, and whether you love Gutfeld or loathe him, one thing was clear: he walked away holding the flame. Stern didn't just lose his grip on the spotlight, he lost the power to matter. So now the question isn't whether Stern can bounce back, it's whether anyone will care if he does. Because the seat he once guarded so fiercely, it's already taken. And the crowd, they're cheering for the new king. This wasn't just another TV moment, it was a cultural shift. A generational torch passed, or maybe snatched. Either way, Stern stood before a mirror he couldn't break, and Gutfeld made sure the entire world watched it shatter. So now it's your turn. Has Howard Stern really lost it for good? Or can a legacy this broken ever be rebuilt? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because in a world drowning in noise, the truth still hits the hardest.